Sinners, a horror story rooted in Arab folklore respectful of Islamic teachings. Written for spoken YouTube narration. Intro.com but an easy tone. In the heart of Wadi al-Mawt, a dry valley in southern Jordan avoided by travelers and untouched by time, there stood the abandoned village of Al. No one lived there for over 80 years. No one prayed in its mosque, no children laughed in its courtyards, and no birds nested in its trees. It was said the village was cursed not by jinn nor black magic, but by something far worse, the collective sins of its people, the sinners. And this is the story of how they were erased. Part 1. The Return. Yoya El-Najjar was a 29-year-old archaeology student from Amman, passionate about uncovering hidden histories. When he heard rumors of a vanished village from an old Bedouin man during field research, he became obsessed. Despite warnings, Yoya set off alone. Guided by crumbling maps and satellite images, he found Al-Jaraba buried in dust and silence. The walls stood, but lifeless. Doors were nailed shut. No signs of struggle, just abandonment. As if the people vanished. Before sunset, he pitched his tent beside the village mosque. He took a few pictures, documented the broken minaret, and made plans to explore the homes after Fajr. But that night, as the wind howled through the valley, Yoya heard something. Weeping, dozens of voices, crying, repenting, whispering. He stepped outside, flashlight in hand. The village was dark until he noticed one house with a faint red glow coming from a crack in the door. He approached. The crying stopped. Part 2. The House of the Judge. Inside the glowing house, Yoya discovered a room untouched by time. Papers on the desk, a turban on a coat hook, and a framed parchment with a prayer of protection written in clear. He read it aloud. Instinctively, Ya Allah, protect us from the punishment of the grave, and from the wrath of the sinners. Suddenly, the floor creaked. Behind him stood a figure cloaked in dust, skin stretched tight over a lifeless face, lips stitched shut. Yoya stumbled back, but the figure didn't move. It only pointed toward the window. Through the shattered glass, Yoya saw the village square slowly filling with shadows, humanoid figures, featureless, crawling out of homes, out of wells, some even seeping from the ground itself. Terrified, Yoya fled the house, but the square was no longer empty. The sinners had returned. Part 3. The Whispering Sin. He made it back to the mosque and locked the doors. Inside, he recited every verse. He remembered Al-Fatiha ayat, Ul-Karasi the Mu'idatain. But then, the adhan began. Not from him, not from any human. A distorted, guttural adhan echoed from the broken minaret, each word twisted, wrong, a mockery of the truth. The mosque grew cold. His breath formed mist. From the walls, whispers began. He stole the orphan's share. She slandered her sister in secret. He mocked the words of Allah, voices of villagers, confessing one after another. Their sins spilled out, as if the mosque itself was remembering their crimes. Yoya realized, this village didn't fall by war or disaster, it was consumed from within. The villagers had once been deeply religious, but they had allowed corruption to seep into their souls' hidden sins, false piety, betrayal of trust, until their collective wickedness reached a point where they were no longer heard in the heavens. And then, something came to collect. Part 4. The One Without a Face. The whispers stopped. Then came the sound of bare feet dragging across marble. There, standing where the imam once led prayer, was a figure without a face. No eyes, no nose, just a mouth wide, stretching ear to ear, filled with teeth like nails. It opened its mouth, and Yoya heard his own voice. I lied when I was afraid. I mocked the eye I didn't understand. He fell to his knees, shaking. The creature stepped closer. Yoya screamed, Astaghfirullah. The figure halted. In that instant, Yoya reached into his bag, pulled out his mother's old Quran, and pressed it to his chest. The pages fluttered. The mosque shook. The creature let out a screech so shrill that the air itself cracked. Then, silence. When Yoya opened his eyes, he was alone. Part 5. The Last Warning. At dawn, Yoya left the village and never returned. But he left behind a camera, recording everything: audio, photos, shadows. He handed it to a trusted professor at his university. Days later, the professor vanished. The footage, corrupted. The files, empty. But the battery was full, and the lens had been shattered from the inside. Yoya never spoke of it again, except once, in an anonymous blog post. He ended it with one line: they were not cursed for sinning. They were cursed because they sinned and never repented. Ending slow, creeping whisper. Some places are not haunted by ghosts. They are haunted by the weight of sin. And when it becomes too heavy, the earth spits them back out.